Okay, welcome to the UFC 139 press conference. UFC President Dana White is a little under the weather right now, so my name's Ant Evans. I'm head of media relations for the UFC, and you're stuck with me instead. We have an incredible card this weekend. HB Pavilion. We have 6 former world champions on the dais. We have a stacked card. Tickets are still available from Ticketmaster.com and the HB Pavilion box office. Ticket starts from $50. We're on pay-per-view, 9 in the East, 6 in the West, prelims on Facebook, and we'll get down to these guys right now. In the bantamweight division, Uriah Faber, Brian Bowles. Brian Bowles has a record of 10-1. He is a former WEC bantamweight champion. He is heavy-handed, the only man to knock out Miguel Torres. He is coming off 2 straight wins in the UFC. He sees this as his opportunity to really make a statement that he wants his belt back. He is fighting the California kid, Uriah Faber, 25-5. He is also a former WEC world champion in the featherweight division. He has fought an incredible fight for the UFC title earlier this summer. He feels he won that fight. He wants to get back up there and fight Dominic Cruz. He is a standout wrestler from UC Davis, a hometown hero in Sacramento. He is also one of the pioneers, and he doesn't really get the credit he deserves for this. He really pioneered these lighter weight divisions. Again, he wants to win this fight big time to get right back in there for a title shot. Moving to a clash of legends in the middleweight division. Gentleman to my left, Kung Lee, an absolute icon from San Jose, an unbeaten kickboxer, had a 17-0 record as a kickboxer, a world champion in kickboxing. All 8 of his MMA fights after he transitioned to this sport have taken place in San Jose. He has a 7-1 record. For UFC fans who haven't seen this guy, he has some of the most unique kicks and strikes you'll ever see. We're very, very excited. Everyone from Dana all the way down in the company is just ecstatic he's finally in the UFC. Kung Lee, ladies and gentlemen. He is fighting a man that UFC fans are very familiar with, another legend of mixed martial arts. As I've read once, he had a reign of terror as the Pride middleweight champion of the world for over 5 years. He has beaten Quinton Jackson twice, Michael Bisping, Dan Henderson, Keith Jardine. Of his 6 UFC fights, he has won a Fight of the Night bonus twice, including a Fight of the Year with Chuck Liddell, and he's also scored a Knockout of the Night. He is a human wrecking machine, one of the icons of the sport. He is Wanderlei Silva. Thank you. Okay, moving to the main event, and I should make clear this is a 5-round main event with serious implications for the UFC light heavyweight division. Introducing and welcoming back to the UFC after a little time away, Dan Henderson, one of the most decorated... Okay. One of the most decorated athletes in all of mixed martial arts, a 2-time Olympian, a former 2-division world champion in Pride, a Strikeforce world champion. He has huge wins over Michael Bisping, Vitor Belfort, Rich Franklin, Wanderlei Silva, and Fedor. A one-punch knockout artist to the point where fans, when they see a one-punch knockout, they say, hey, that guy just got hendoed. He is Dan Henderson. He is fighting in the main event, the former UFC light heavyweight champion, the Pride 2005 middleweight Grand Prix winner. He owns knockout wins over Forrest Griffin, Lyoto Machida, Chuck Liddell, Quinton Jackson, and heavyweight Alistair Overeem. He is one of the best Muay Thai fighters in the entire world. Shogun Rua. Okay, that's enough of me. Let's open it for questions.
For Dan, please. Obviously, welcome back to the UFC. When you left the organization, did you envision yourself coming back? And in retrospect, now that you are back, how do you look back on that time with Strikeforce?
I enjoyed my fights in Strikeforce, and the organization treated me well, and I've got no complaints or no regrets for leaving the UFC in the first place. It was all about business, and it was a good decision for me. And I had no idea if I was coming back or not until I heard that Dana bought Strikeforce because he missed me. So, I was satisfied there and happy there, and with that being said, I'm happy to be back in the UFC as well. So, especially with being able to have good matchups like this one.
And obviously, at 41 years old, I mean, you're one of the best runs of your career. Is there something you can point to as to why you're still successful at this age? And are you going to be the next Randy Couture? Are we going to see you at 47?
I hope not. But you never know. I love what I do, and as long as my body holds up, and the biggest adjustment I had to make the last few years was just getting smarter with my training and toning it down a little bit, and still being able to maintain my conditioning.
A bit off topic, but I was wondering if all the fighters would mind commenting on it was big news yesterday that UFC on Fox did a peak of 8.8 million viewers on TV. It was a little higher than a lot of people had anticipated. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that number or what you thought it was, but I was just wondering if I could get the fighters to comment on it. Start down here with you, Rodney. Okay.
That's awesome. I mean, I think it's a matter of time before, mixed martial arts and the UFC, the biggest sport and the biggest organization in the world, and I think even more impressive was the 60 million viewers in Brazil. I mean, that's crazy. So, and then all around the world as well. So, it's exciting time.
Milhões de espectadores aqui nos Estados Unidos, que é uma audiência muito boa. Além disso, o Soraya comentou sobre a audiência no Brasil, que chegou a 60 milhões de telespectadores da luta do Velasquez Cigano. O que vocês acham disso para o esporte?
I think it's great for the sport. Finally, this sport. I think the game just starts. We have just the first event in Fox. It's a transition for the sport right now, and I think it's just the time for to be the sport number one in the world.
Fiquei muito feliz com o UFC chegar nesse patamar. No Brasil, hoje, com certeza, é o esporte número 2 já, que está chegando perto do futebol, então estou muito feliz e é um sonho realizado o MMA no Brasil chegar nesse patamar.
I'm very happy to see the UFC achieving this status as a sport. In Brazil, we are already the second sport only behind soccer and really coming closer. So I'm very happy as a professional to see the sport reaching this level, and it's a dream coming true for us as Brazilian fighters. Talking about the ratings in Brazil also that were great.
Yeah, I think it's awesome as well, and it's, I think been a long time coming that it's been throughout the years with the UFC getting on Spike TV was one big step, and I think this is, with them getting a deal with Fox is just another huge step for the sport, and it's just going to have the opportunity for new fans to fall in love with it like the rest of us have.
I think the second show on Fox will be even bigger for UFC.
I was very impressed, especially only having, one fight on the card. They've been the first one. That's a lot of numbers. And again, like Uriah said, that 64 million is just crazy. I'd like to see the American fans or the American numbers like that.
Brett, I can add to that, Brett. We're consolidating numbers today, and we will have a full breakdown down, but that 8.8, which is the peak, people actually tune into the actual fight, that doesn't include people who watched it on DVR, and it doesn't include about 400,000 who watched in Spanish on Fox Deportes, so we could go over 9 million for that.
Question for Uriah back here. To your left, I believe. Yesterday on Twitter, you were talking about seeing Dan Henderson in the UFC office, and he was a guy, you wrote something quick about this, how he was a guy when you first started, he was around, and now you can't believe that you're on the same card as him and he's still around. Can you talk about that story, and are you surprised to still see him fighting and doing better than ever at his age?
I'm not. I mean, I asked in that same training session I was talking about. Basically, I was a wrestler coming in, and it was like my first 2 weeks of training, and Dan was out in Sacramento, and I was just going in there going for the kill. And of course, I went against a guy who's another great wrestler and bigger and more experienced and everything, and he was just killing me. And he's like, "Man, don't you know any jiu-jitsu?" And I was like, "No, not really." And I said, "But you're way bigger than I am. I know some, And then he said, "Well, Javier Vasquez knows. He's small and he can hang because he knows jiu-jitsu." And I was like, "Well, I'm working on it." But the other thing is, I asked one of his training partners. I was trying to get a feel for how the best guys did things, and I was lucky enough to be around guys like Randy Couture and Dan Henderson when I first started in this sport. But I was asking his training partner how much he runs, and he said Dan hasn't ran in 13 years. And so I've been a huge fan of Dan. I mean, he's just a mentally tough guy. He also told me a story when he was partying all year and then decided to compete in a wrestling tournament and won the national tournament after not competing all summer. So this guy's a unique cat. He's like a pirate or something.
And for
I guess I got no comment about that, I definitely do other things to stay in shape other than run.
do you remember that day? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember that, and I watched, I think it was his first fight, right, that I watched, I was at, and he just came out guns blazing with not really any game plan, just going 100 miles an hour the whole fight and never slowed down, so I was pretty impressed with that.
Just a quick question for Kung. Ant said at the top that all your fights have been in this area, in San Jose. You were on that first historic card, the Shamrock Gracie card. Why do you think this corner of the country is so into MMA? It just sort of blew up out of nowhere, and it's really sustained that kind of popularity. Why do you think that is?
In this area?
Yeah,
In the Bay Area?
the San Jose Bay Area.
Well, I believe because AK has a lot of great top athletes in the camp, and just around the area from Gilbert Melendez to Jake Shields to, there's a lot of good MMA fighters here, so I guess everyone's excited to watch MMA.
Okay, this is for Uriah. You say that you learn something every time you lose. I mean, what in the fight with Dominic? I mean, it was a close fight. What was the biggest lesson that you learned in the fight with Dominic?
I learned, whenever you do some PR and you're talking to a large crowd that doesn't really familiar with mixed martial arts, they're always saying, "Hey, explain it like you're talking to a kindergartner that's never seen the sport before, and you're trying to explain it to them." And I think I need to do that with the judges. I want to paint a picture that I'm winning this fight for someone that doesn't know what they're doing. And on a real note, we both had a great fight. I had 2 rounds that I think I definitely won, and a third that I felt I definitely won, but could have gone, it was close, and then 2 rounds that were pretty close. So I just have to be more decisive, understand that, it's hard to say what the judge is looking at. If a guy's trying to take you down 11 times and he does 0 damage with it, is he getting points for that? If you're knocking him down but he's jabbing you, who's getting the points? So I have to be cognizant of the fact that I'm playing to a couple of people whose opinions matter, and I don't like fighting like that, but sometimes you have to.
And with Brian, what do you think is the most dangerous aspect of the game for you that he holds?
With anyone that's been a champion and that has risen to the top of this sport, you're dealing with a strong mind, and that's something that you have to take seriously every time. And all the champions and guys that are on the fringe of being champions are mentally strong and have heart and dedication, all that stuff. But he's got that, and he's got some dangerous weapons. So I'll just honor that. I know what his weapons are and make sure that mine are more dangerous.
Okay. It's Karen. I have a question for Shogun and for Vanderlei. A lot of the people that have been commenting on the interviews we've posted already are excited about the fact that you're fighting together on the same card, that you've been friends for so many years. I'm just curious how you guys both feel to be together again, and if you have a fight of each other's that you remember as the most memorable from, either back in the day in Pride or recently in UFC that you really remember about the other one.
Vocês são amigos, muitos fãs estão muito empolgados, felizes em estar tendo vocês dois no mesmo card e tal, isso tem sido muito comentado. Vocês sendo amigos há tantos anos e tal, o que vocês sentem por estar lutando no mesmo card, juntos novamente, e se tem alguma luta do passado do Vanderlei, no caso o Vanderlei e do Maurício, que vocês se lembram como uma muito memorável, assim, da época do Pride ou de qualquer época?
I'm very happy to fight Semi Vanderlei because I am your fan long time, and he my big fan, and I'm very happy, and I hope I win Saturday and Vanderlei too.
For me, it's the great one too. This guy is a legend of the sport. He came after me, but after that he explodes, have a lot of talent and stand up in the ground. And in this guy, 100%, I think he can be a champion again.
Muito memorável.
I think the best victory I saw him is with Minotauro in Pride. It's a great fight.
Eu poderia do Vanderlei que teve final do ano com o Arona, que ele venceu a revanche.
I would remember as memorable the fight between Vanderlei and Ricardo Arona on the rematch when Vanderlei defeated Arona.
For Shogun, please. Obviously, your past 3 fights, 2 excellent performances, one maybe not so great against John Jones. I'm curious if you can point to something in that John Jones fight that was maybe different, or why that fight didn't go well.
Das suas últimas lutas, a luta que você não teve uma performance tão boa foi a luta contra o John Jones. Tem alguma razão que você poderia apontar por que essa performance tua não foi tão boa, a luta não correu como o normal do teu jogo?
Na verdade é difícil falar, né? A gente é atleta, a gente treina para lutar e todas as lutas estamos prontos. Mas, na verdade, assim, o que eu sinto mesmo é o tempo parado, então acho que não é fácil. Luta é um esporte individual, então a gente ficando um ano parado é complicado, a gente perde o ritmo. Se fosse um esporte coletivo seria mais fácil, mas como um esporte individual, realmente a gente sente. Eu acho que essa foi a maior complicação que eu tive nessa luta, assim, o tempo parado.
Well, as a fighter, as an athlete, it's actually tough to say because we always train our best and try to be prepared for every fight. But I could say that staying sidelined for 1 year without fighting is not easy for any fighter, any athlete, because fighting is actually an individual sport. It's not a team sport. If it was a team sport, I mean, you don't feel that much. But coming back from 1 year sideline is it's tough in a one-man sport per se. So I would guess that was the biggest difference and biggest reason in that fight.
And also to follow up with Shogun, I'd just like to know kind of how he looks at his UFC career as a whole. Obviously he came to the UFC as one of the top fighters in the world, I think 4-3 in the 4 years here, but held the title briefly. When he looks at his UFC record so far, how does he consider his legacy?
Queria saber também como que você analisa a tua carreira no UFC. Você veio para o UFC considerado um dos melhores atletas do mundo e nesse tempo no UFC você conquistou o cinturão, mas teve altos e baixos, tem um recorde de 4 vitórias, 3 derrotas no UFC. Como é que você analisa o teu legado e a tua carreira dentro do UFC?
Na verdade eu busco sempre melhorar em todos os aspectos, como atleta, como pessoa, e no UFC também. Eu sempre busco melhorar minha performance como atleta, até porque eu sou profissional, vivo disso, então eu sempre busco o meu melhor. E acho que com certeza a gente que é atleta, a gente passa por várias dificuldades e tenta superar isso. Então, eu no UFC, a gente sempre luta com os melhores. O UFC eu acho que hoje é a maior vida do mundo, só tem os melhores do mundo, então a gente luta com os melhores. Então, nem sempre a gente consegue, a gente busca a vitória. Então, com certeza, eu vou treinar bastante para buscar as vitórias.
Well, as a fighter and as a person, we're always trying to improve and to be the best we can be. So I'm always training and working hard to improve myself and to perform at my best. But the UFC is the best show in the world, and they're only the top fighters in the world, and you only fight the best. Ever since I've been here, I've been fighting the best, and certainly I'll be, I'm always trying my best to win the fights, and certainly I'll keep trying to improve and be on top of my game and keep winning fights.
Great. Thank you. One quick one for Brian. Brian, you mentioned yesterday kind of being the forgotten champion and not really having that it factor, so to speak. Are you okay with that role, being, maybe the quiet guy on the end of the table down here that hasn't got many questions, or is that something you're hoping to change?
I'm cool with that role. It is what it is. Like I was saying, some kids are like the cool kid in school, and you don't know why, and they're popular. I'm not that guy. All I can do is go train hard, and win fights, and just keep my name out there that way.
I'm gonna ask in Portuguese from Brazil, Shogun. Shogun, essa luta tem tudo para ser um clássico, né? Dois dos melhores atletas de MMA do mundo, você e o Dan Henderson. Como é que você se preparou para essa luta e o que você acha que vai fazer diferença nesse combate?
Yes, she asked that this fight is a classic per se with two great fighters, a fight that many fans expect for a long time. How did he prepare for this fight and what he expects to make the difference in such a close, tough fight?
Com certeza eu sei dessa luta, a importância que tem, até porque o Dan Henderson é um cara que eu sempre admirei ele muito como lutador. E desde a época do Prado também que ele é top até hoje. Então eu gosto de lutar com os melhores, então é uma luta que eu gostei muito, mesmo sabendo que é uma luta difícil. E com certeza me preparei bastante para estar preparado em todos os aspectos. Eu acho que ele é um cara muito bom do wrestling, bom de boxe. Então eu treinei muito wrestling, muito boxe e muito jiu-jitsu também. Então eu espero estar preparado em todas as áreas. O MMA é um esporte muito amplo, então eu sei que está preparado em todas as áreas. Então eu treinei muito isso.
E o que você acha que vai fazer diferença?
É difícil saber, na verdade, essa diferença, porque a gente não sabe o que ele treinou, o que eu vou treinar. Então, muito menos como que vai ser a luta, né? Eu espero que a diferença, eu coloque meu ritmo na luta e consiga pôr meu ritmo na luta e fazer aquilo que eu estou no planejamento.
Well, for the first part, he said that Dan Henderson as a fighter is a guy that he respects and admires a lot for a long time, ever since the Pride days. So as a fighter, he always wants to fight the best. And Dan Henderson is one of the best, so he always expected that fight to happen for a long time. MMA is a very complex sport with many aspects, so you have to prepare yourself for everything. And he did his best at his training. He prepared himself a lot in boxing, in wrestling, in jiu-jitsu, for all aspects, because anything can happen in a fight. He knows it's a tough fight, and he hopes that his whole preparation and the way he prepared himself can make the difference in the fight. Respecting Dan, but trusting his skills and the work that he did in training camp.
Vanderlei, bom, muita gente está questionando a sua performance nesses últimos tempos dentro do UFC, questionaram uma possível aposentadoria. O que você pensa disso tudo e o quão motivado, qual a importância dessa luta para você?
Português, inglês ou Spanish? Como queira, não? Eu acho que realmente eu errei nessa minha última luta e nesse nível do esporte a gente já não pode mais errar. E errei, paguei pelo preço, sofri muito, né? Realmente foi uma luta muito dura para mim. E acho que me abriu os olhos para outras coisas. Mas estou me sentindo bem, estou bem treinado e espero no sábado poder provar que posso continuar lutando.
The question was that many people have been criticizing and questioning Vanderlei's latest performances and what happened in his last fight and whether he should keep fighting or not. How did he approach this fight this way? Vanderlei said that the last fight was a learning experience, that he made some mistakes, paid the price, suffered a lot because of that. It was a very hard process, but it was important, made him think a lot on what happened and seek some improvements, and he's well prepared and ready to take the fight.
I've got two questions. First for Shogun and for Dan. In both of your minds, what's the difference between this fight being a 5-round fight and a 3-round fight as far as strategy and also as far as training and conditioning?
Pergunta para vocês dois, para o Henderson, para você, o que muda com essa luta sendo 5 rounds em termos de estratégia, preparação, condicionamento? Se é que muda alguma coisa.
The difference is 2 rounds. You just, same as 3 rounds, I'm going to go hard as I can and as long as I can. And you kind of have a pace. You can't go 100% the whole time, and you just got to account for that in your training and be prepared for 5 hard rounds, and that's what I did in my training.
Na verdade, acho que não muda muita coisa, até porque a gente é acostumado a treinar sempre o tempo maior que o da luta, né? Então, acaba se tornando mais do que até 5 rounds. Então, para nós, a gente manteve o mesmo treinamento e não muda muita coisa nesse aspecto de 3 ou 5 rounds.
Well, actually, I don't think it changes that much because when we train, we are used to train much more than the actual 3-round time frame in a fight, even more than the amount of time we spend in a fight. So we're always conditioned for that. So it doesn't really change that much. We keep training hard, and being 5-rounder or 3-rounder is a hard training and a hard fight anyways.
And also one more for Shogun. You brought up the popularity of the sport, maybe being number 2 to soccer in Brazil. Have you noticed a point, was there a point like it's where it skyrocketed, or has it been something that's been gradually building over the last couple of years? And when did you kind of really notice the sport taking off?
Você mencionou que o esporte no Brasil está chegando no número 2, se aproximando do futebol, etc. e tal. Como que você vê isso tendo acontecido? Você acha que houve um momento que o esporte decolou e chegou nesse ponto, ou foi uma coisa gradual que foi acontecendo aos poucos?
Não, acho que foram 2 coisas fundamentais para esse crescimento. Eu acho que o UFC foi um evento que investiu muito nessa mídia do Brasil. E também acho que o Brasil é um país que tem tantos ídolos no MMA, então isso colaborou bastante. Então acho que esses 2 aspectos foi o causador do grande crescimento no Brasil.
I think there were 2 main aspects that caused the growth of popularity of MMA in Brazil. First, the UFC invested a lot in media in Brazil with a lot of PR work over the past few years. And the second thing is that Brazil has a lot of idols in MMA, a lot of heroes in MMA already, and that helped the popularity to grow. And in my opinion, those were the 2 main aspects that got MMA to that level now in Brazil.
First question for Uriah Faber over here. Now that they're making 5-round fights for non-title main events, would you ever consider wanting to go like 7 rounds in a title fight, or would that just be crazy?
How about a fight to the death? I'd be down for that. I'm never going to quit, so the more rounds, the better.
Fair enough. For Hendo, after you put the Fedor dynasty to rest, did Dana have any particular words for you post-fight at some point?
No, I don't think so. I know that he, I think at the last press conference up here, he mentioned thank you. Yeah. I know that he's always believed that Fedor might have been overrated, but I think you have to ask Dana about that one.
Okay, will do. And a follow-up before I pass the mic. Do you think that the winner of Shogun versus yourself should get an immediate title shot against John Jones, or if Machida upsets him, or do you think Rashad deserves his title shot since he's been waiting around for so long?
Yeah, it's another question for Dana, I guess. I'm only concerned with this fight and making sure I'm focused on that. But I think with any fight that the winner could be a possible title fight. It all depends on how the fight goes and how it's finished, and if it's a boring fight that not a whole lot happens, then nobody probably wants to see a fight for the title. So, I don't think that's the case in this fight, but who knows? That's another question for Dana, though.
A couple questions for Vanderlei, please. Vanderlei, I'm wondering how familiar were you with Kung before you accepted this fight? How much had you seen him fight before, and what do you think of his style?
I started studying his game after the guys asked me for a fight with him. I have one unique style, I think nobody kicking like him in MMA. He's a really good fighter. I hope we make a good show.
I think I heard you say before that you didn't expect to fight again until next year. So with that being said, was there any hesitancy to take this fight, or as soon as you offered it, were you just excited and ready to go?
No, after my last fight, I really want to fight again soon because I'm ready. I train a lot for my last fight, and I'm not fighting not, And this is the reason I wanted to fight soon. And soon the guys asking me, I accepted the fight.
And then a quick question for Brian, please. Brian, we heard Uriah talk about his last fight, that he still thought it was really close and don't know if the judges went the right way. I was wondering, I know you were on that the card that night, but what were your thoughts on that fight, and do you think the decision went the right way?
You know, I thought it was a really tough fight, typical Cruz fight. You know, he's dancing around, you know, hitting you, and it's really hard to hit him. You know, I thought Faber did a really good job of landing some big punches. You know, he definitely won some rounds and lost some rounds. I mean, it was really tough, close, tough fight to judge. You know, there live. You know, I later watched it at home, so I could you know, just watch it better. You can see it better on TV, and you know, it was a really tough fight, but I think it was the right decision.
And then in your mind, I know you were disappointed you didn't get a title shot, but is this kind of the clear second best opportunity you could have to face Uriah?
You know, I definitely think, I mean, it will clear up any questions on who fights Cruz next. You know, we're both top of the weight class. You know, if you look down through the roster, I can't think of anybody else it would be besides me or him, you know, and the winner of us, you know, it has to be fighting Cruz next.
Okay, let's take some questions from the fans.
Sorry, I had to be that guy. Is it on? Hi, this is for Kung Lee. You're a legend in Sanshou. You've pretty much established an impeccable record. How does it feel to not really be as recognized by the MMA world for your amazing accomplishments and for your incredibly dynamic skills, abilities, and kicks for that matter?
You know, I don't really mind. I'm just glad to be part of the UFC and on this card. So I'm excited, and you know, if I'm not recognized, I'm sure after this fight, people will know me for my kicks.
Hey, how's it going? This question is for Uriah Faber. Hey, man, I'm a huge fan. Just want to know what advice you can give for some of us young bucks trying to get into the business.
I would say the most important thing is understand it's a long road. You know, I talked about 8 years ago, Dan making fun of me because I didn't know any jiu-jitsu, and you know, it's basically something that you have to understand that is going to take a lot of time. I get a lot of guys that come to the gym that just want to, you know, train fighting or mixed martial arts or UFC. You know, they want to train UFC, and you know, you basically tell them, all right, we'll hop in a jiu-jitsu class, and you know, go with the chicks over there that are learning about footwork in the boxing class, and they're like, no, I don't want to learn that. I want to learn how to fight. So it's about building a good team and having the mentality that I'm going to learn, and getting around good teachers and believing in yourself. You know, I'd rather take a guy that believes that no one can beat him up than a guy that doesn't believe in himself but knows a bunch of technique. You know, it's going to be a close fight. And it'll probably end up, you know, especially in a fight to the death, it'll be the guy that believes he's going to win. So, yeah, just stay steady and surround yourself with the right people.
This question is also for Uriah and Brian. Obviously, you have trained specifically for one another, but in the event that one of you wins and goes up against Cruz, who is swift and strategic, what do you guys plan to do differently? How are you going to, you know, beat a guy who's incredibly fast?
Go ahead, Bulls.
I don't know if there's really an answer to that. You know, Cruz is a guy who's, I don't know if he wins because he's fast. I think he wins more because he's really awkward and you can't get your hands on him. You know, I don't really see him being the fastest guy out there. You know, if you walk into a boxing gym and you start learning how to, they start teaching you how to box, they're going to tell you how to do everything the opposite way he does it. But you know, so you don't really expect somebody to come out there and do the stuff that he does. You know, but he's found a way to make it work, and you know. And I think the only way you can prepare for that is to get somebody in there that can move like him, and you know, and that's the only way you're going to get the feel for it.
I would say, you know, it wasn't that difficult of a fight for me, aside from the fact that it was 5 rounds, and I was fighting a guy that's tough. I mean, he's swift, I guess. I like that word, but Yeah, I wasn't having too much trouble hitting him. I hit him plenty of times. I just wasn't throwing as many punches. So maybe I need to throw more punches. I also only had 3 takedown attempts, like solid takedown attempts, other than setting up, other things like punching him out of takedowns. And I defended 99% of his stuff that was grappling related. So I just got to do more, have a higher output, and try to finish it, but be aware of the fact that I need to score points along the way. I did a good job of stalking him without throwing careless punches and making the ones I did throw count. And that's how I envisioned beating him, but the judges didn't see it my way, and he fought a good fight as well. But he's not scary. I'll fight him any day, every day, all day.
Last question, please. For Vanderlei and Shogun, back in the day, you guys used to have a devastating Muay Thai clinch. I was wondering how come you guys don't use that technique anymore these days? Has the game changed, or do you think it's not effective anymore?
A pergunta dele é que no passado vocês tinham um estilo avassalador, devastador, muito agressivo e tal. Hoje, às vezes, vocês lutam de uma forma mais tática, mais técnica, mais estratégica. Você acha que o Vale Tudo mudou, o jogo mudou, né? O esporte mudou e hoje precisa ter um pouco mais esse approach?
I learned a lot, no. My last fight, you can't go, no. You need to be careful, no. This sport changed a lot. The level of the opponents change up, and no, I think it's the time of the sport.
Okay, guys, thanks everyone for coming. UFC 139, tickets still available. Ticketmaster.com, and check out the pay-per-view. Thank you all for coming. Okay. Get this out of the way.
Grab me that mic out of there real quick.